with her, and she knows she.
I didn't turn the mics
We
on
talk
yet,
to
though. Oh,
each
you did.
other, and
Okay.
she's got like a
We're live.
racing stripe down her back. And I said, I'd love to bring you home, but
We are live streaming.
but it's, I
Don't call Rob a nasty maid. He may hear you over the.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Brian's not very aware.
Hey, Ray.
We know you're out there, Rob.
So I did check it. Looks good, so hopefully,
Good evening,
it
Ray.
will work for us.
Okay, good.
Morning, good evening.
We are streaming.
Yeah, good
Need
evening.
to go back
Don't
to
let me do
morning.
that again, no.
Not when we get to morning.
Oh,
Oh.
my gosh.
Mary, do you want me to make you a copy of this?
I would appreciate a copy.
You know
because I
what,
can't print
yes,
it.
please, I think,
Yeah, you want, go ahead. You need my number?
all these years, I've never used that copy.
No.
No, I don't even know what my number is.
Oh, gosh.
I don't have a number. I have
We
Brian's
are
number.
live, so
But
you still gotta put a number in there. I don't know why.
No, no.
Yeah.
There's no,
Oh, I didn't know why though.
I give
used to
everybody
copy
my
it,
number. I don't care.
And then if I was gonna do something, I would just pay him for
Yeah.
the reams of paper,
Well, I have to, if I want anything printed that we get from here, I have to forward the email to Milan and him
Him do it.
print it
I
out.
could print it at home now, I would better
'Cause I
print
just
it.
can't with my tablet.
Oh,
It
no,
doesn't
you
have a
can't.
connection.
Oh, you don't have, okay.
Matt, Stu, and Bill Logan, I got emails from Walton, actually Matt Conley goes, as soon as that legislation's passed, send it over to us. We want to get it filed before the end of the year for the tips.
Oh, yeah,
There.
absolutely.
said, I think we could have passed it last week. Yeah, that's okay, though. They'll get it done. The
Is
counties,
Bill Logan's still gonna be coming in part-time?
well,
He's gotta go
we
through
can, Nicole will be here Friday.
'Cause I thought he was going to, like, the
Yeah.
following Monday. 'Cause we had-
He wasn't here.
Okay.
Okay, and he's getting something, the secret is, once Nicole gets, her computer here and stuff, and we have her in the office by Mary there. She can come 3 days or whatever, part-time, she can come. She might be here at 7 tonight, I don't know. So, she'll be here Friday. She'll be here Friday. So, okay, and Angela ordered a computer for her. So, and she's used to, I think I showed you with her. You guys, she uses the same program over Bentleyville that we use here at the UAN program. So she's familiar with it. In fact, they didn't have it when she got over there. She implemented it, so she's very familiar. It's just a matter of her getting access, really, more than anything.
Right.
And getting, find out where things are and stuff, so. I think she's gonna be a big asset. I didn't tell her I told her about 7, so it wouldn't surprise me if she's here at 7 today.
So with her part-time and Angela part-time, got one full-time.
Well, eventually Angela's,
Gone, right.
yeah, and then we'll, see what happens. But regardless, we could only vote 2 people, one-
Oh,
well,
yeah, we desperately,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So. Have people got your Rita? I got my Rita
I just
thing
did
today.
yesterday.
Yeah. No, really? Okay, now I got mine today, Ray, so, sometimes we get like, Barkley,
Mine was yesterday, so I don't know.
Mine was 2 days ago.
You wanna hear the sad part? Did you see the date, the letter's dated?
Yeah, I think it's Saturday.
Did you see the
No.
date, the letter's dated?
No,
Because they
I
told us
didn't.
it would be the first week, December 5th.
December 5th, yeah. That's
funny.
what they had projected in.
Yeah, and that's what's on the letter.
Yeah.
And look when we got it. Now,
CFO.
it is what it is, But I've had quite a few calls
I
just
don't know, and I said,
wondering why, and I
Happy birthday. and he
explained it to
goes,
them, and
So what are you doing tonight? And I said, I have a council meeting. He goes, yeah, I got something from Rita about you. He said, yeah, we signed up.
okay, where did I see December 9th it's dated, actually, right, at our council?
Actually, I
I
would
thought
have
it
gotten it
said
on
December
Friday.
5th, I must have looked at something.
It was either Thursday or Friday. It
Yeah.
was
They
before the
maybe
weekend.
I might-
Tom, did you get yours?
They
Did you
may
get
go
something
off
from Rita?
alphabetical.
That could be too.
You might not get
Right.
nothing, it just
And Ray
depends, I
doesn't
guess.
yet.
It might be alphabetical, it might be.
Yeah.
How's-
Angela is here, so we just, as soon as she comes in. And we can,
Yeah,
if we run over into the
I talked to her
meeting, it
very
doesn't matter.
briefly yesterday.
At the machine.
She happened to come in when I was
Oh, boy,
here. and
that machine's probably as old as,
reading the agenda ahead of time.
Okay.
not
She's
quite
figured
as
out.
old as me,
Yeah,
but
some
been
of
here a while.
I know, I
You
looked
got
for it
some of
yesterday,
mine,
and then we went to
Mark
dinner
was
last
on
night
there.
because we were gonna do it tonight.
I just did that this morning.
So I
so
didn't
that
see
we
it till
just
today.
put
Yeah.
You know, and I really didn't get to look at it because I saw it at work, so.
Your own
No, it's-
perusal.
I mean, it's everything we've been talking about, there's
Temporary.
nothing new in there, so.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I was talking to somebody, another mayor,
Bob, do you
and
want a copy?
he said there's 3 or 4 communities he knows of that
These are the extras.
they won't pass they never pass their budget. They do temporary appropriations every year because their council wants to see the total year end. They wait till like the middle of January before they pass a temporary budget
Every
every
year.
year.
Well, we've done
So
it
it is,
many
oh, we've done it,
Yeah,
many,
yeah.
but I'm just, I said, I never thought of that, you know, Now, we've been, we didn't have to do that in some years because we weren't spending any money. So it was easy, you know what I mean? We weren't spending any money or whatever. Brian, you look pretty sharp. That's like a, almost, I like that white tie, almost like a candy cane.
That's what I said, he's got a
Did
candy.
you say, I must have been in the other room.
I'm glad I didn't wear mine.
We could have took a picture of it too.
Mine is more red than. Lot more red.
Karen, do anything for?
You're live, good.
Yeah, don't touch anything.
I don't even have the other recorder. so
Don't touch anything.
I'm not plugging in any peripheral.
No, don't touch
gonna
anything.
blow
You're
on
gonna get
everything.
yelled at.
Oh, what's this? You plugged in a new one? Did you?
Yeah, we started having oh, okay, here we go. John will be here, of course, for the,
Gloating
council.
is not becoming.
Just saying. Okay, oh, here. My phone, my password is not right.
Yeah, that would help, right? Oh, I don't wanna put this.
Then tell us, were you
I am
doing-
having, Jenna Lee is taping it, just in case we do have problems. She's gonna do both meetings. Okay.
Well, why don't we give that one to Rob right now, so he sees where he's sitting.
Yeah, go ahead. There you go.
Yeah. Lisa Brown.
Yeah, it was frozen tonight.
Yeah, it's frozen, that's.
Not doing my glasses, but it's all- If you need your glasses,
Sorry,
go get
sorry,
them.
sorry. I'll live.
Okay.
I will live.
Are we all ready?
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 Okay, great. Then I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for December 20th, 2022 at 6:38. All of council is in attendance along with the mayor, Angela Reve, and Rob Kalman. So if we could start off, Angela, with our report 52.
We can, yes. So I don't intend to go through it line by line, just because obviously we don't have time for that. But we are doing stellar in income tax, past our budget amount for withholding, past our budget amount for individual, and pretty stinking close, within $3,000 to net profit. And we still got December to go in there. So I'm pretty excited about that. So everything else is kind of status quo.
Actually, Angela, I believe those are reversed. Net profit
Sorry.
exceeded
Yeah,
and
and then
individual.
was closed. Yes, correct. Either way, I'm like
It's still
super
good.
excited. Yeah, exactly. We usually fall a little bit short on withholding's always good, but we usually fall short on net profit for sure with all the extensions and everything. So, yeah, so that's been fantastic.
And Angela, before you go on, when is this through?
This is through November.
The end of it, or?
This is through the end of November. And then
Okay.
you'll see when we get to the back, I still have credit card stuff to put in, but I accounted for it. It just is a general number for us, expenses, and I've got some more Ohio municipal net profit tax that I have to put in, so I put that on there so we can get a true picture at the very last page of just about where we're at, once everything goes in. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else fantastic here. Traffic camera looks like it does not exceed quite as much as it had in the past. That's been a little slower this year. By this point last year, We budgeted 300,000, probably we're closer to 500,000. So that's been a little slower, but we've also been paying the courts, which I stuck in, for right now.
Where are you at? Let's get the,
I'm on
saying-
page 1 of revenue.
Okay, so you're on the revenue.
Yeah, so we're
Okay.
still on page 1 of revenue, looking
Okay.
down at camera, which is, 1,619.
Okay,
When we get to expenses, we'll see, we've been doing a $15,000 advance each month to the Garfield Municipal Courts. And then in between, we had a little bit extra to pay them as like a true up. And then going forward, I think I paid them one extra, I didn't need to, so they did send that back, so that'll reflect in December. But they're trying to just take 15,000 every month and true it up. We're still getting some of the payments from GATSO, but some of the things are gonna come from the court as well. So within this 324, we technically have already paid out just pretty close to 100,000 of it to the courts. Because now they need to be, taking care of everything on their end. And eventually, all payments will come from them too, once their systems are up and running to be the only electronic payment system, and GATSO kind of steps away from that. So people can still go there to hear their, have their case heard if they want. But either way, we have the fee. When we started out, our fee was 20,
yep,
and now we're down to 15 or 25 and down to 20. So immediately, right after like the first couple months,
Amber Alert is going out.
yeah, they were able to drop our fee at least $5, and they'll reevaluate that as well again. But just food for thought going forward, because as the camera has picked up less speeders, that's fantastic, obviously. But when we shore up the end of the year and see where we were with what we're paying to the courts versus what we're taking in, do we want to look at increasing fees? We're at the very low end of fees, so we have wiggle room to increase the camera fees themselves. So. And then also wiggle room to negotiate with GATSO, but I kind of wanted to ride this out, and since they're still involved in giving us checks, kind of can't really negotiate yet. Once I can tell them, hey, you're not really doing much, that'll make it a little easier.
and our fees haven't, increased, we haven't increased those since the inception
Right.
of the cameras. So,
I
I mean,
wanna-
it's something to think about, not just to increase them because of this, to increase them because just, well, it would be for this, the administration of it all has changed. Inflation, I mean, it's been how many years? What, 3 now? 4?
Oh, we kind of, for
Maybe
more.
long,
Yeah,
maybe even 5. So we haven't, the rates have been
Yeah.
the same,
18.
Yeah.
It was in
2018.
yeah, 5 years. So,
Angela, can I ask you about the property tax allocation line?
yes, I do still need to do some moving around, but which line would you want to look at?
It is 1,231,000.
Yes,
There was,
so we didn't budget in that line, but I've got things in that line. So between our couple lines we have, I just need to make sure, was that the line I was supposed to pick to budget or not? Because we've got lines for police pension, lines for special assessments, lines for general property tax. So what you're seeing over here with special assessments at 197, as well as that 523, and then in the other section, police pensions, that's all there. It's just a matter of me figuring out if I need to move it or not.
okay,
So, yeah, so when I do the December report, everything will be locked into place where it should be. And I'm gonna probably still tweak this report.
okay, and then line 1,590.
Yes, I was getting there.
Okay.
So we talked about this last time on dispatch. When I budgeted, I forgot that they owed us more last year, right? Because we were still in the throes of the straightening everything out. So I did over budget a little bit, but right now, this is only reflective of 2 quarters. So I did email Shannon today. She's the one who invoices them. And usually if I'm here, obviously I'm a little more in tune with getting with her, but we should have by now, at this point, pretty much right about this point, received all 4 payments. We've paid all 4 out to fire. In a given year, we're getting 4th quarter paid in the 1st quarter, and then 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So this number should double by the end of the year. They should owe us just about another 79,000 and change, because they would owe us for 2 quarters still. I've only gotten 2 quarters worth of payments. So I'm not sure if Shannon's on tonight or not, but when I
No.
so I emailed her, so she may be on tomorrow. And then she can get those invoices out, and I'll touch base with Brian over at Oakwood, and see how fast they can get those to us.
Okay, how come that number has dropped so much?
The
from
number
what
dropped because I put in the same number from last year, which was more because they owed us for those previous years. So I didn't put, when I budgeted, I put in too much. You know what I'm saying? They pay us $39,000 and change a quarter. So we would have 160 coming in for the year roughly. So that's the change in the numbers, which I brought that up, I think, once before already. So 160 is where we should land.
Okay. Next question I would have is 1,611,000 court costs.
Yes. What about them?
It's almost half.
Well, and I don't run court, but
Okay.
we've been running low since COVID. So, Nancy does all of her reconciling very timely every month. She gives me her report. I pull in the cash and transfer it to the general fund. And so like, there's different lines in here that represent different lines of court.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Just because I was looking at the court fines also is
Yep,
like half
Everything
of the
is like
previous
half.
2 years.
yep.
Okay.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
we had briefly just mentioned, I believe the mayor mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, about analyzing that court to see whether or not we want to continue with that in-house or move it off, and that might be something to look at next
Yeah,
quarter.
court, especially since
No.
COVID,
Summer.
is almost a break even. So you're just, you're doing a service.
Right,
It's not a moneymaker.
Right.
You're paying salaries and benefits for your, the magistrate's not benefited and neither is Marty, but you're paying Marty's salary for your magistrate and then your clerk of courts at plus benefits. So
Right.
your plus benefits matters. So it kind of almost breaks even, when we're a little bit ahead of this, but we'll probably hit a loss this year as far as, paying out versus.
yeah,
what
it's
we
the
took.
losses
Yeah.
we're concerned with. If we
Yeah.
can do business.
Not a big moneymaker for us, and then
Better.
the state keeps changing legislation to where things like camera tickets and everything, now the muni court gets to suck up everything, and the muni court's not making money on those camera tickets, don't get me wrong, they're not allowed to even make any money on them, but
Mhm.
it's still now that we have to pay them now as well, in
Right.
addition to, so all those little things end up adding up.
Well, it is nice to see the other things that are up though too, such as other charges for structure plan and review,
Absolutely,
the
which keep in mind,
industrial permits.
next year
and
may-
zoning.
may
permits,
rise or
yeah.
same, and they may go down a little, because depending on where your properties that have been planning and doing some zoning, wherever they're at in their process, those numbers could either stay.
Oh, they're gonna go up. They're
Good,
gonna
that
put
would be great.
500,000 square foot
That would be
building.
great.
It
That
would be
great.
double that.
That would be
I
awesome.
mean, that's actually the next building plan, whether that happens. or
Good.
not, I don't know.
Right, so
I'm just
there's
being
something to think about
optimistic.
when we finish planning the budget, right? And-
But that's the next building in the plan.
Yeah.
But that, who knows? A lot of things
Yeah.
could change.
So that represents positive development and progress.
Does anybody have any other questions on page one?
Yeah, just that one question, just, Madam Chair
Mm-hmm.
and to Angela, just for clarification on the dispatch.
Yes,
So 79, 3, 94, 22,
that's
22
2 quarters,
that we have received.
yes, and we're due 2 more. We should have already had 1 for sure, and the other one should have been rolling in right about now at least. So we'll end at 160,000 roughly. 80 and 80.
Angela, on that line, just a question, do you know why it shows 0 for 2020's actual?
Because that was the year that we were in contest and they never paid us. So that was brought up by the auditors as well, because that was when we were deciding where the deals were happening and no signatures were on paperwork as far as Glen Willow being part of the contract. So we kept paying fire, they were not paying dispatch.
And that's why that number is so high in 2021.
Exactly, so then that's why.
That's 2 years.
Because they owed us 2 years worth. And then if you remember last year,
That's why.
we did let them go ahead and like net it against the fire contract, and then they owed us like another 5,000, and then I just made an internal entry for the auditors to show that we were now square, because that's important on their end. And then I ended up grabbing that same number.
Yeah, that's why, yeah, you grabbed the
Dispatch
wrong
services
number.
are, yeah, dispatch services are not really that lucrative. Put it that way.
No.
Yeah, that,
Fire's lucrative for us to pay.
But that's why they owed us for the 2 years.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's why your zeros there for sure.
that started at the end of 18, correct?
Well, we were
That
getting
discrepancy.
payments. Yeah, we were getting payments and we were doing a lot of, which I don't abide by this. Like, I'm not cool with this. So we were doing a lot of, take this off the fire contract. Plus then we had the ancillary piece that Vic put in place of, well, instead of us doing your withholding tax, or we're gonna take your withholding tax from you, but then we're gonna pay you back for equipment. And that was kind of also like, take it off of this invoice. So I nixed that and we decided mutually last year, or actually probably even 21, or end of 20, I should say. We're not gonna even take withholding tax. At the end of each year, they will say, here are our invoices or receipts for all of the equipment we purchased. we will then figure out what would have been your withholding tax. Do you still owe us? Did we come, square? Or if we owe them, we don't owe them. Do you get what I'm saying? But otherwise, rather than us be a holding tank and then hand it back to them, we're just, as a courtesy, we're just not even taking that withholding. We're gonna see, because part of the contract was that we would give money back for the equipment. So we'll get receipts again and see where we're at with equipment. But yeah, it was a little more of a hot mess between, because the contract for mixing, they were separate of each other, so that was not necessary. So now they're separate, and we've always paid
Hi,
out fire.
Nicole.
We've never held up on fire, so we've always been square on our fire payments, even when they were not paying us.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions on page 1? Okay, let's move on.
You have an extra report 52?
Because I know you should print it for the audience.
No, I was gonna give one to Nicole.
Oh, I don't know, well, just speak over now, because you're gonna be in to start. She saw the bubble.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
we
good.
went over this. All right, page 2.
The non-operating other and other miscellaneous, it's nice to see big numbers there, but where do those come from exactly?
Yes, so we are, hold on. All right, so some of that money coming in is going to be, money coming back to us for projects, BWC money refunds coming back to us,
Okay.
things like that. So, yeah, it's always a little bit of a windfall, if we're getting some money back from BWC. We got less back this year than in the past, but we've still gotten a little bit back here and there.
Okay, and the sale of fixed assets, I believe we had 2 cars, police cars that were,
Yes.
I thought that was about 9,000, so is
It
there
was
something else?
8,000, and there was another, we had 8,000, I think we had a 3,000, and then we had another little random 300, that was miscellaneous stuff, I don't even know what it was, actually, so
Okay.
I was gonna ask Stan. But yes, so those came in, I wanna say November.
Great.
One might have been October. Okay.
So does anybody have any other questions on page 2? All right. We can go to page 3.
Nothing exciting here. You see that the note transaction took place. So that's been listed there. That was November. You'll see it out on the expense side as well. Sewer improvement money, that's reimbursement we've gotten from NEORSD. Intergovernmental is any of our stuff that we're getting on our road projects from the county. Or anyone else that would be a piece of that.
The 4901892,000, that 952,000, was that from one of the projects?
Yes, that was
Last
probably
year?
project budget, and again, with the lines kind of just flip-flopping, I've got it up in the intergovernmental, so, you know what I'm saying, so last year's project, and then, and I'm gonna double check with Joe, I think we've gotten all our funds, but we might have one more check outstanding. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on page 3? Okay.
And page 4, you'll just see again that number as well in 99,02690 for Mayor's Court, also not quite half, at least a little bit better, but still down about $50,000, $60,000. And then second party service non-operating, that is, what we bring in for like lawn care and plowing and stuff from last year. So that's kind of an in and out for us. We don't budget anything for it. JED doing okay. I took the new JED budget. We had our meeting last week. I took that budget down to, I think, 725. Or maybe it is at 750, and I thought it was 775. But we had Compass Group, who was providing the food service at North Coast, was also a part of our JED, and for a year and a half approximately, they have not been there. But Tom Jordan is looking into who has been doing their food service, because somebody should have been paying us if they have food service on site. I think Compass is actually coming back, is what they were told us last week. But so that was a little bit of a chunk of what we were missing, but otherwise not doing too bad. We'll probably fall a little bit short on that budget. But state of Ohio is pretty steady for the behavioral facility payments. Nothing's really changed drastically with them. And we have 2 other tiny individual companies.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, great. Does anyone have any questions overall on the revenue side?
Yeah, I do, Madam Chair. I have one question on the revenue side, and that, it kind of goes back to page one, but it's just, it's in general, as we are moving into 2023, with Rita being the tax administrator, and the 3% retainer that Rita will hold for their services. Does that come out of a combination of the income tax lines, or?
That's
you
gonna
don't-
probably be up to us. We haven't really even talked about the retainer on any of our calls. We do a call every week, but that's a good question. I mean, that's probably on our end to decide, and so it could come out of a combination of the lines. Or we can do one fee in the finance line for it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever we think makes sense, I believe. I don't think they're gonna really have much input on it. So however we wanna spread it, or I can ask them, are there other municipalities that are spreading it across, you know, hey, we get more withholding tax, so let's put a bigger piece of the percentage against that. Yeah, I mean, when we budget, we'll account for it, but I think it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other as far as where it's coming out of.
Okay, and the second part of that question was, you know, I remember during the discussion that there will be the retainer, and then Rita will, at whatever their fee amounts to, whether it's the 1.3, 1.5%, then they will reimburse the village.
Right, they will do a true up.
Does that happen during the course of the calendar year, or any idea when our reimbursement?
I will
actually
ask
happens?
them. It will, yeah, it will definitely probably be within the calendar year, but it may be a usual, like how we capture like a fourth quarter, first quarter, second quarter. It might round like that. So let me ask them. We have a call tomorrow actually, so I will ask how that happens, and it might happen more frequently. They might actually true up throughout the year, after each quarter, at the end of each month. So yeah, I'll ask exactly when the true ups happen.
Well, I would think that it would be easier for us to keep track of it and watch it if we have it in 2 separate lines. You know, then
You
we
want
know.
3 separate lines, right? Because we've got net profit, withholding, and individual.
Yeah, but if we had our payments to them as a separate line and then the
Oh, yeah,
true
we'll
up
absolutely
as a
keep their
separate
payments.
line.
Yeah, we can keep their payments as a separate line. We can definitely do that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to back up just for 1 minute to do with the JED. At this time,
Okay.
we're still going to be the administrator of the JED. It's not going with Rita at this time.
The JED needs to vote on that at their meeting, so they'll do that next year. So really, North Coast checks, those checks for us will still come here. So instead of us, we were still gonna take care of distributing payment to Walton Hill and to Sagamore. But now we're just gonna also maintain whatever payments are coming into us. I or whoever else will go in and enter them into the Rita system, just like we're currently entering them into minutes. So Rita will not have their hands on the JED really at all. So,
At this time.
which originally they were gonna just send us a separate check, you know, that would be for the JED each month, or separate payment, however they were doing payments. And yeah, so right at this time, we'll just hang on to the JED stuff.
All right, we ready to move to expenditures? Rob, do you have any questions? Okay. All right, Angela, if you would.
Yes, and this is where my eyes are gonna fail.
Yeah, 'cause this is really small print, and I just had my eyes checked today.
So given that we've had to have more police working more often, you know, down a couple officers, down dispatchers, we're actually not doing too bad in terms of budget. So, I mean, police overtime, as I've stated before, you're gonna look at this line, and I capture all of it, but a lot of that overtime that's in any given payroll is actually police services too. So when we have money that we bring in from UH's grant, that they send money every month, a little bit here and there, or police services in general, like that kind of offsets that a little bit. So it's like 37,000 is, you know, an overstatement per se of how much overtime actually needs to be spent in the village. But I like to throw it in there just so we know, because that's how it's on the payroll report, and I take it right from there. We do have a little bit of overtime that happened, you know, with people being out sick at one point, and on vacation, where there had to be extra coverage. More so on the dispatch end. So I'm still pretty happy that they are only over by just a little bit, and now things are leveling out for them, because they got 2 part-time dispatchers, and Matthew Bonfield was made to full-time. So things are mellowing out for them a little bit, and they're not as stressed and overtaxed. I'm just what's up. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else on this page.
The police salary part-time, well, but we're down a part-time officer.
Exactly. So the
So-
part-time salaries are lower than they would be. They're all working between 72 and 76 hours a pay period at least. And occasionally 80 plus, just if, you know, if there's coverage needed. They have not had as much overtime as this year for me, but. Stan, feel free to jump in since you walked in, if you got any comments on your line items in your budget.
The weapons allowance, Angela?
Yeah, weapons allowance goes on the last paycheck of the year,
Okay,
so that will be coming out for actually this week's pay.
okay.
So that's a one-time, once a year, and everyone's got to meet their proficiency to do that, so Katie did verify that with the chief. And so, yeah, that'll go on for this period, like that's happening this week.
And the sick leave for our officers is down quite a bit, which is nice.
Yeah, officers generally don't take sick leave, they really don't, so unless they need a surgery or a procedure or have some major appointments, you can bet your bottom dollar when you look through the police payroll lines, there is not sick time taken, so, yeah,
We have
kudos to them. 'Cause-
we have very little sick time taken throughout all our employees. Our employees are here.
Yeah, they are.
With broken fingers.
All right, let me see. I'm just trying to see if anything's like getting close on a lot of our line items, because obviously we're coming to the end of the year. Once credit cards are put in, a couple of may end up going.
Is the uniforms and clothing allowance going to go up?
It will.
Okay.
So most of that stuff's on credit card. So when we get to credit card discussion, if we have time in this evening's meeting, that's gonna change next year, because along with the auditors, because this has been another hot button for years, we have not been taxing them as fringe, because they've not been getting handed a check or money put in their own check. And we've been opening a PO and they've been just putting it on a credit card. So to mitigate purchases happening that are not 100% necessary for uniform, on the police end, more so than anything, the boot allowance and the police clothing allowance and dispatch clothing allowance will be just going out in a check. And then that's on them for the year. It'll be taxed as fringe in their pay, but they don't have to turn in a receipt or do anything else. So yeah, but yeah, that will definitely go up. So they all got a report of what they have left a couple months ago, a month ago.
That was one of the suggestions
yeah.
from the audit.
But yeah, those will go up just because I have to fill in the blanks with the credit card receipt.
All right, then, any questions on page 1 of expenditures? Anyone else?
Hey, John.
Okay. We'll go to
Stan?
page 2. Here's a question for you, Angela, Board of Health.
Yeah.
I mean, it's under expenditures and it's down, but I'm just curious as to the,
Yeah, I gotta double check that, because usually it's right around the 13,000, so, and I thought we were pretty close again, but it could just be that their payment was less this year, so I'll make a note to double check that. It gets paid a long time ago, so I don't anticipate anything else coming in for it.
okay. Under rec and community life, the salary, I thought Mary was going to be paid out of rec
Mary's not
and-
been paid out of rec at all. So now what I thought about the other day is I will probably make an adjustment. So for the December report, it was never that we intended to take it out of rec either, because it was only supposed to be a short-term thing. So then we said, okay, on loan, here you go. You're getting the same amount of money, whether you're down there or up here. She does make more when she's helping me with finance, so she reports those hours separately to Katie and I, because she's getting paid more for that. But, right, so it looks as though we didn't use an assistant at all this year, but what I
Right.
will do is I will go back and look at, I'll probably half it. So prior to making her full-time and taking out any finance hours, I'm gonna probably half it, because she has spent a substantial amount of time down there. And so then we can get an actual picture of, difference being obviously, I'm not gonna switch her benefits over, because that's not a benefited position down there. So, she does have benefits up here. That was another reason to kind of just keep it all in-house with the admin side of things. But since it became a lot longer term than I anticipated, I will give a little more accurate picture of her spending time on rec. Because Mary's had a little bit of overtime here and there as well, which is typical of the rec department. Natalie too, but, this time of year when we do all of our activities between that trifecta of Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, there's a little bit of overtime for that department in general.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we did advertise for that assistant position. We actually,
It's still on, Indeed.
yeah, and actually had somebody that we thought would fit the role and offered him that. And I don't know if they're still working it out. He had another position too, but we were kind of excited about that person. So we're still looking for that assistant, for the rec department, yeah.
Now,
So you
likewise,
know, we've been active trying to get that filled.
in the seasonal salary line, I'm gonna double check how she ran the Parker program this year, because we're usually under budget there. But again, we do use them for other events. Also, to that effect, Rob was able to use one of the kids, and I did not pull that out and bill it to you. So that would be a minor adjustment. It was just for, I don't, you, how many weeks, Rob? Just, how many weeks you think you got?
Probably
Rob?
wasn't too much.
Right, exactly. So it may not even be worth pulling out, because it's kind of gonna wash in the end, but, so if you're looking at why they're over on seasonal, that may be why. We've got a little bit of extra time for one, and then we've got some of them that are helping with all the events. The rest of
Yeah,
them.
we did have them at the Halloween and at the Christmas.
She had them a little more steady during the summer as well. Last year, Maya really didn't give a ton of hours to any one person, so she had them coming a lot more shorter shifts. Yeah, so, and I think we had a little more robust staff this year, so. Plus,
Yeah.
we also had those leads.
That's what
So-
I, Madam
That's right.
Chair, I was gonna, because of
That's right.
responding to the discussions with, you know, the Lake Club, the Parker program, and responding, as you know, because it came out of the rec committee, we had the leads, and we wanted more coverage, and with some more coverage too. So there's a little more in there, but I think the program, as we know, went smoother according to what we're hearing, so.
Yeah.
Angela, under special events, is there anything else that still needs to go into that?
Anything from December will still go into that,
Okay.
yeah. So they are a little over there, but they're under on some other lines, and then trips look like they're way over, which is fantastic, because everybody's taking them, but on the revenue side, we should also see some money that came back in. If you're going to the Playhouse, you're paying for your tickets. So yeah, I did note that, but I was like, oh, okay.
And the contractual line there is for,
Contractual line down there is, most of it is probably for,
That's the Lake Club.
well, no, the 20,000 is the Lake Club, but that's a different, is that what you're looking at? The 20,000?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's Lake Club.
okay.
That's 100% Lake Club. Sorry, I was thinking of the.
So say that's a lot of cleaning services.
No, cleaning would be under pro services. I mean, we've been busy up there, so there has been a lot of cleaning too, but, I'm just looking, everything else, motor vehicles, we talked about this last year, repairs. I asked Dan before we put stuff on Gov Deals, any of these worthy of going to the rec department, right? Because they desperately probably need to get a car here soon, but we've run everything else, like, you know, to its end in both departments, service and police, that we can't really passing anything off to rec's not gonna be better than what they have, so they've had, and Rob, I don't know, do you even remember like what's been repaired the most this year? I can't think for the life of me if it's any one over the other.
Awesome, waiting for, waiting out down there, and the transit, I think the newest thing is the 14, we really have to cut that,
Yeah,
and we should have crown bit before it's done.
anybody knows somebody
And
wants to donate cars? Well, no,
The bus, I know, also got new wheels, I believe,
yeah,
this
well, there you
year.
go,
so
new wheels
that's-
on the bus, and that could be it right there, so.
What about capital
Keep
outlay?
turning and turning.
Capital outlay, I think is, we said was from the fence.
The
but
things
I'll
we
look and see what
remember,
that
huh?
was.
Okay, because I believe the fence was last year.
We did something this year up there, but I'll
The
look.
fence, was that last year,
Or
Rob?
we may have purchased tables or something for the park. My capital
Capital
outlay
outlay.
line for $3,500. I'll go back and look and see.
I know now it was putting tables out.
I thought there was something, but I'll look.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I know for next year's budget, Natalie mentioned to me that she would like to get new tables. for that
Tables and chairs, some chairs
event
too.
center, yeah.
We did order some last year, though, I thought, too.
Sure.
Okay,
Handfuls, right?
Okay. So nothing else on the rest of that page that's really thrilling. Any other questions on page 2 of expenses?
Okay, let's move to page 3.
Yep. So electricity coming in close, gas over, but that was cyclical. And again, I have them negotiate rates down, but it was very cyclical. So we were up high last winter, came down, like way down, and now we're climbing up again. And I mean, that's at my house too. So, just by nature of needing the rates checked. So I've got our person who does our electric, looking to see about our rates for gas as well for next year.
Garbage and trash removal,
Garbage and trash removal is gonna go up because you have probably 3 more bills to go in there. Well, you'll have 4 more bills to go in there, so we will definitely hit, there's gonna be another at least 60,000. We'll come very close to that 180. We'll be very, very spot on for budget for that. I don't think we'll be over unless anybody's doing massive cleaning right now and the December bill gets crazy.
Under service department there, continued, it says
Yeah.
land and improvements recycling. What is the M&E?
Oh, that's, I need to move some things because we, right, isn't that where I put the leaves from? We have a line item we can use for leaf dumping. We've all talked about this before, but then it's not active in my system. It's not active in the accounting system. So I parked some stuff and I need to just move it. I need to see if I can reactivate that line specific to leaf dumping. So that's what that is.
What we pay for that is just something, isn't it? You know what I mean? I mean, years ago, we were fortunate. I mean, it's one of the things of doing business, but.
Yeah. Trying to see if there's anything illegal. Protect services in legal. I highlighted that last time and now I'm gonna forget what we said that was.
In what?
Under the legal section, so down at the bottom, under mayor's
Mayor's
court, 1,723.49.
The highlighted
We've-
117,000.
We've paid Ricker, but not that much, so.
No,
So let me look.
yeah.
Look and see what that is. I mean, we have had outside counsel fees, legal fees for outside counsel for things.
Any other questions on page 3?
Sorry.
All right. Boards and commissions, nothing exciting. I mean, increase a little bit in salaries this year just because we've had more meetings for things, but otherwise still on par. Still on par for audit services. I think we'll land right where I got it. I think that we were, now UAN looks a little higher, but really I think I threw a little bit in the audit line. I did one check out or one payment out to them all at once. So UAN is still $948 every quarter times 4 quarters. So basically barely 4,000. But the last time I put in a payment, we had also paid for audit services. So that's lumped in there a little bit. And I can move it so it reflects in the line above. But that's why that looks like it's over.
Under solicitor, the professional and technical services,
Yeah, and John.
is there anything else that needs to go into that, or?
Well, no, there's maybe one more payment to Zashin, I think, just, and then anything, I think anything we would owe Matt's too, if we end up getting any bills, that's gonna come into probably the finance. If that's where I put his. John, anything else you can think of that's gonna be outside type of legal services or anything?
Before the end of the year? Perhaps.
Okay.
You could wait till after.
Well, we've got money in the budget, just depending on what it is, we're just trying to get an idea. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
But I can.
No, we're just, I think we'll be, well, go ahead.
If you can get it to us, I would like it to us by the end of the year, since it is an expense this year.
Mhm.
So it should reflect more accurately that way.
So the $20,000 line item down under administrative salaries obviously was that assistant that I budgeted for. So when I do the adjustment on Mary, a tiny bit of that, I'll reflect in that line so you can see what kind of finance hours she's been putting in. And then administratively speaking, obviously, again, time gone up a little bit because it's been about 2 months since we had her at full time, almost 3 months maybe. So we added 10 hours to Mary's schedule, and again, because she was splitting with us and rec, it's all reflected in here, so.
I thought she was down with the rec department over the summer too.
She was, but she was still splitting time, so
She
she was
was
down
still-
there
yeah,
for the day
she-
coming up here, and she wasn't full-time with us yet, so.
Mary was over the 30. She got her benefits,
Oh, yeah, she's
but
always
she
been
wasn't
benefited
working 40 hours since we hired her.
until a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Good, so that we can have more hours up here.
Mhm.
Anything else super exciting over here?
Anything else on for page
Anybody?
4
Um,
for anybody?
Payment to county treasurer, I think we talked about that last time, and I'm trying to remember what that was for.
What, what line are you on?
The very
Angela?
last.
Very last line, I
Oh,
think in the
okay.
beginning of the year, we had owed something that we had to send to the county, which we may get back. So when everything was said and done and that final declaration was made to make the tax, property tax exemption on that building,
For the event center.
yes, I was told that we're definitely square, we don't owe, because originally they said they were making the recommendation for 19 forward, or 18 and 19.
I have it
We
here,
would
but
maybe owe past that, well, my email's from the other one, so it's not gonna be.
I have both. Yeah, well, I got, but it doesn't matter. Go ahead, go ahead.
At any
Don't go
rate,
by-
I questioned it when we got the declaration to say, are we still going to go back and owe for that time? And they said, no, because it was paid, you may actually get some money
We
back.
might get, yeah,
So we haven't yet, but nothing owed, I guess.
but the county's never quick.
They're pretty quick on our road reimbursements, not gonna lie. All right, so in the next section on page 5, transfers haven't happened yet, obviously. That'll be coming up soon in December.
Angela, what is the outlying highlighted $904?
Oh, that's
Under
for me.
advances.
That was just a note for me.
Okay.
I was just looking for something when I was plugging everything in. You can ignore my notes, sorry, until you get to the last page. All right, so SCMR fund, close on salaries there, obviously over on overtime, and depending on what our December looks like, that could go up more. Rob, while you're here, I don't know, do you want to give insight on anything outlying this year that came up that would have had more overtime involved? And then do we still ride with that going forward? Should we plan for more overtime next year, or
And we don't have to decide this.
Well, no, but
We're
it's-
gonna have more finance
just
meetings.
so he can give it some thought?
Right, right, right.
Since he knows what's going on down there. We got 50 water main breaks, did we have, you know what I mean?
You know, when I started tracking, it, because I know when we went over last year, you know, we budget in the past, I'm looking at the numbers, in the past, we budget 20, and then
Yeah,
we go to 23, and then we budget 25, and we're 30. You know, the biggest thing with the, something we just don't account for, we were budgeting 20 and 25 every year before we had anything to do with the event center. So, you know, we're doing probably in between flips on the weekend, I'm calling the guys in, probably,
true,
I'm guessing about 380 hours a year.
okay.
And
That's-
sometimes, and that's only
Yeah.
like one flip on the weekend, sometimes we do two. So that's just
Yeah, that
switching,
matters.
that's just switching rooms over. So I've only have half of our 22 tracked with that because, you know, I had the guys jot it down and I started looking through the sheets. I'm like, wow, this is an impact to me and I just like it, you know. So if we need to move it
So
to
we'll need
30.
to move it up, for sure.
Right, so.
Okay.
If Rob's keeping track of the hours of when they're there, should that be back pulled from rec department?
We can put some of it in rec
I didn't mean to
department,
start that.
I'm just asking what makes the most sense.
I mean, they're still service employees, so theoretically, again, it's a wash in the end because
Mhm.
everybody's married and the accounts are all gonna wash at the end of the year, so, you know, we're not, unless we wanted to go in and separate them out, right? So when Mark Morano was driving, we have, same thing, Mary and Finance, we have separate hours. These are allocated to rec, these are allocated to finance, these are allocated to rec, as transportation, these are allocated to auxiliary. We would have to go back and start separating our hours out then too, which is gonna be tedious on Rob's end, because he's already got to mess around with time cards more so than we do in-house here for the administrative side. So yeah, I would say leave it where it's at there. And if he's tracking though behind the scenes, then we still kind of know when we do our financials for the event center itself, hey, factor in more labor as part of what your expenses are there.
Okay, and Angela, the part-time line is nothing so far for,
Yeah, I've been dropping him into the full-time, so that's another reason that line looks a little higher. So Scott, like, I kind of lump it in because I forget he's even part-time when I'm running everything. I'm just looking at the figure.
Unfortunately, we're running hours
Yeah,
almost full-time with it.
right. So
So-
he's accounted for in that full-time number.
okay.
So basically, if you add that part-time we budgeted to what their full-time would be, and then they're still under budget, so,
Mhm.
yeah. Fuel, Rob and I will look at again. I mean, obviously fuel went up this year, but I think there were some things that I might have popped in there that needed to go somewhere else. But otherwise, probably pretty close. When we get to.
We have under there materials, salt, cold patching, gravel, which looks like it's drastically down, but under state highway fund would be a different one for salt.
Right, so we
So
have
we have
that
nothing
extra
there.
little bit that goes into that fund for salt, which we'll be probably using that coming up, depending on what's gonna happen. Now, at the end of last year, we took what we needed for contract, right, Rob? But we also had some, and we had a little bit more mild winter off and on, so we didn't need nearly as much salt as we had in the past. We basically had to like purchase out our contract. Who are we going with this year? Are we still Cargill?
I think we're gonna be Cargill for $47 a ton.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't, hard to budget that one, right? Because it's just like plowing your own drive, right? You pay 1 year and you think you paid, a ton of money, and then it never snows, and vice versa here, right? So I don't know if we want to touch that line item just in case. 47 pretty relative to what we've been paying the past couple of years,
No, I think we could safely do $110,000.
110,
And that's giving ourselves a little bit extra in case of an emergency.
okay.
Does anyone have anything else on page 5? All right,
All right, so the OPNF, right on par for police pensions getting paid out. Down in special bond retirement section, you see all the activity of the note. Sideways, highways and curbs and all that, but you're gonna, looks like we're way over. We put 450 in there, 869, but again, some of that is offset with all of our reimbursements. And so some is spills over. So when we're doing, we're saying 2021 concrete project, well, I just paid out that. That just got finished and paid out on the 2021 piece this year. So we could maybe do a little shift as well. I can work with Joe on doing a shift on when exactly is each thing getting done. So does any of it need to go in the next year's budget, the following year's budget versus the one we're gonna do?
the special bond retirement fund,
Yeah.
Angela, the interest line.
Yes, so your interest is at the 10%, 21.4.
Okay.
Then the line below the payout, is, what it cost us to go out for the note again.
Okay.
Oh, it's the Amber Alert, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
mine
ready to
came,
yell at my kids and it's
you,
the
you got
Amber
the
Alert.
first one. Mine came real late too.
This phone does come late today at
Yeah,
work. I got
especially if
one.
we're in here, mine comes
Yeah.
real late.
Um,
At least that's my excuse to marry it all the time.
I don't have anything else on that page. So the JED looks low right now, but I just paid out, I actually owed the JED for 2 quarters. So I just paid that in December, so I could, last week after we had our meeting. So I also need to transfer those funds over to us. So December, it will go up then because we needed to have, second and third quarter popped in there, and then fourth quarter gets paid, obviously, first quarter of next year. So that number will increase. I'm gonna forget by how much, but let's call it almost 200,000. So that'll come into our general fund, and you'll also then see the reflection of the payment out to SAG.
Angela, you may have said this, but line 49018005556202 under some capital improvement fund,
Yes,
the streets, highways, sidewalks, and
storm sewer,
okay,
yes.
because I just see storm on my copy, that's also.
Yeah, so that's usually when we're doing some work, and then again, offset a little bit by the line item where we're getting money back from NURSD. Rob, for some reason, that doesn't look accurate, I don't know, but, sometimes we're paying for repairs and sometimes we're self-performing, so.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councilman Whedon, did you have a
Yes,
question?
yeah, Madam Chair, I was just going to ask in a general sense, if Angela, if you could just walk us through the capital improvement fund line by line, because there are some various lines where there's dollars budgeted but no expenditures.
Yeah,
and others
it's the
where
same as
there's
my other section.
none
where-
budgeted, and then there are expenditures. Could you just walk us through that? section?
Exactly, so there are sections in here, just like the others, where I put something in and then I end up booking it to another line that's very similar. But while we're looking at motor vehicles, okay, so we're good on motor vehicles. Police had ordered a car, they did get it later. Sidewalks, curbs, again, that's any of our projects that we were doing for this year or finishing up from last year that got paid in the beginning of this year. And then, like we just said, anything that we had to do with sewers, whether we were self-performing or paying otherwise. So when we budgeted just a little over 500,000, I believe that was pretty close to what our road program was for this past year. You got 450 and the 55. I'm sorry, 55's for so 450 was our road program. But we've got extra stuff that still is being paid out for 2021 pieces. So, but also reimbursed on the revenue side of it.
So there's one line for, yeah, I think it's equipment. My eyes are struggling to go all the way across.
Yes.
The dollar
so
amount is
I do need to look
83,000.
for that. Rob, do you remember what we would have done with equipment over here?
Where are we at?
83,000, and if you don't remember, Stan, do you remember? I know we did purchase actual equipment, that's why I stuck it there, but I'm trying to remember what it was. It could have been a combination of things. So I could look, in between the meetings, I could look at that line and see if it.
Or we have equipment, and then we also have machinery and equipment.
It wouldn't be the truck, would it?
No, so with the trucks, because they weren't gonna be ready, we did the POs to get everything started, we canceled them out. That was like $400,000, so you don't even,
Yeah,
that's a,
those weren't even
that's
gonna show.
nothing to you guys right now until, when it comes in, what we'll do is we'll end up booking in for the new budget what the lease payments will be. I feel like there was something big ticket, but I don't think it was all police or all service, so I'll look in between the meetings.
Anyone have any other questions on that page?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
quick question. Angela, you know, we're getting ready to pass the tip. Will that be a separate line?
We can create a separate line for it, yeah. It's gonna come in through the property taxes, I imagine. I've never seen one on a bill before, to be honest, I haven't dealt with one to see what it's gonna look like. But I imagine it's going to be a piece of, so just like we have police pension, special assessments, regular pieces of the property tax, I think it's gonna be something additional on the property tax. So we should probably be able to create a separate line for that because it's gonna be money that we're earmarking for capital projects, so,
Right.
Yeah. And that money is to be used for infrastructure?
yeah.
So, like, let's say a truck or so, I mean, that we could, okay. Just wanna,
Yeah, roads,
I think it should be.
so it'll be a separate,
like we need a plow truck,
so it'll be a separate line.
In
So
order-
we'll be
yeah,
able
it
to
should
follow
be
that
separate.
close.
yeah, separate line on both sides of it. We'll put a
Yeah.
line on the expense side and a new line on the revenue side for that.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last page. Angela, how close do you think we're gonna end up being to the, right now, we're showing a positive of
yeah.
over 348,000.
So, once I factor in a little bit of tax stuff from the net profit system I need to put in still, and the credit cards, we're at about 348, and I feel like we're gonna hover pretty close to that, because anything we have out still, like for contracts and encumbrances, like our health insurance and everything, we have more tax money coming in that's gonna probably supersede that. So we've been pretty close.
Okay. Anybody have questions on the budget?
I just want, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to say, I mean, that's nice to see that we're finishing again in the black.
Yes.
We'll see. I mean, we do know, you know, this is through November, but
Yes.
as Angela said, so, that's just credit to everybody up here, plus the departments. Who worked hard all year to, you know, stay within their budget and do whatever we can. And it's nice to know, so, just,
And Rob, I owe you a PO. I'll get that over to you before I leave tonight.
yeah, that's,
No, we haven't talked, you only have a few.
Okay.
I'll send you an email.
but you're talking about the
I was
big
talking
one
about the big one,
for the 20,
for the truck, for the
for the
20,000.
20,000.
Oh, that's not the biggest.
no? Oh, no, there goes
There
our
goes Rob blowing the budget.
there goes our 348. Oh, gosh.
Can you leave us with 48 at least?
Leave us with, yeah, leave
All
us
right.
perhaps.
Angela, are you, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I know there, can you, I know Mr. Nowicki asked at my mayor's
Yeah.
morning meeting with the mayor about what, the question was, we know what we have in reserve, but kind of the difference between what is real and what isn't, like, you know. I
Actually,
think
yeah.
that was pretty much your question, Mr. Nowicki?
What we owe was cash in the bank, just like the old bank.
Right, exactly. What is real, more or less, is what you were between the two.
Oh, yeah, so I should have brought my capital project sheet in, sorry for that, we just.
Well, if you don't know, I can,
Well, I can
just,
grab the sheet for what we just paid down on notes, so you know what's outstanding on projects and such.
Right.
I mean, our cash from balance kind of hovers around 3.4 million, in
3 to
that.
6.
So we're still right there with that. Then we have 500,000 in investments that we really don't touch, like give or take, a little more than 500,000 in investments that we don't touch. They sit there, and we've actually been getting great interest on it this year. Like, I mean, we went from getting like under $100 to over 1,000. So maybe that had something to do with Star Plus combining with Star Ohio. But we've like all of a sudden we've gotten great interest on the investment. So it doesn't sound like much, but
If you wouldn't mind, if you can go ahead and grab those, and I'll talk for just a second here about temporary appropriations.
yeah, you want me to, and I'm gonna reprint that because there was an extra 9 in my thing that Brian pointed out for the 10 for appropriations.
Okay,
But yeah, you just want me to grab my project sheet, give you an idea of where we're
Sure,
at with
sure.
Debt service, yeah.
We'll make Nicole come up here and sit.
so I know last week we started to talk about the temporary budget for the first quarter, and how we really do need to pass it, so legally we can be paying the employees, and it is just a bare bones at this point. Brian, I'd like to ask you to go over the sheet that you sent over today, just real quick.
Oh, the only thing I did was I took our 2022 permanent appropriations, which was ordinance 2021-21. That was passed, I believe, December 20th or 23rd of last year. And that was a permanent appropriations for the entire year. And I just took it was the same exact line items as what the temporary budget is for this year. So I just copied all the line items and all the numbers to each line item, just to give us, because I know there were questions last week about, are the numbers, how do we really know? And we didn't have this Form 52 right here, the Report 52. And I didn't know if we were going to get it or not. So, and just for my own looking over stuff and kind of getting things into my own head, what things look like for the quarter, I took the first column there as, of course, appropriations for 2022. Second column is the proposed temporary appropriations as we have in our packet. And I just took the first column and divided it by 4 and saw where we are. So your first security persons of property personnel, personal services. Last 2022 was appropriated at 1.9 million. For the first quarter, it's proposed at 478,000. Just simply taking the 2022 appropriations, dividing it by 4, gives us 476. So we know we're in the ballpark with 2022. Some of them, obviously, like capital expenditures and things like that, that's not going to be, because things are going to be paid, they're not reflected here. So, but for the most part, just to give us an idea, food for thought. And I didn't see anything. I think the numbers are appropriate. And Angela did say that she did include COLA increases in these.
2%.
Yeah.
And any large projects or wish list items were not included in.
Yeah, so for me, my thoughts on this, the whole thing came out to $1,996,714 for the temporary appropriations. Of course, we can fine tune that, obviously, if we need to do something in the end of January or whatever, or come up, we have the permanent appropriations. A quarter of our 2022 was 2,634,000. So we're in the ballpark, we're in the range. I'm very comfortable in passing that tonight. I don't have any issues with it.
I would just like to say, I would like to pass this tonight. If anybody feels it's absolutely necessary to have another meeting about it next week, although I don't see that the numbers would really change that much for what we were looking at passing. But so that we can legally continue to pay our employees, I'm sure they would appreciate it, as well as keeping the lights on and that too.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. I can wholeheartedly understand the importance of temporary appropriations to continue operations. However, especially after tonight's discussion that we just had, not having seen the full year of 2022, and some funds that maybe, need to be reallocated here or there and things like that. Also, the point that I brought up earlier about the retention that Rita, the retention of funds from Rita, not knowing exactly how that's going to work also. But if we go back to September, what Rita actually will retain is about $140 some odd thousand. So that comes off the top of the table, and then we get reimbursed at some point,
Right.
and we don't know what that is. So with that being said, it's important for us to have appropriations, temporary appropriations. But however, we have not had a discussion as it relates to employee staffing for the upcoming year, what that might look like, if there may be additional staff coming on board. Well, we know there may be some. And I'm concerned about baking in a COLA until we have taken a more in-depth picture of what the actual operations, especially around personnel, will look like. Of course, there's always the potential for retirements, and especially, we've had discussions in the past about, a number of our safety force, may be in line for that,
Right.
which comes with balloon payments.
Right.
So I just think we need to, before we sign off on a COLA, we need to really take a more in-depth look at the overall employee picture for 2023. That's my only concern about yes, we do need temporary appropriations. Not to mention, we also have a employee classification and compensation study that has not been finalized. We haven't had that report yet. All right, so I think that signing on to a COLA, other than for those employees that have bargained through collective bargaining for that, is a bit premature.
Madam Chair? I understand where Mr. Whedon's coming from, and I appreciate that and the concerns, and I have the same concerns. The COLA that is put into here is only for the way I'm understanding it, is only for our, the way we're budgeting for that first quarter, just in case we do
Right.
have the information to give the employees that raise. It's there. We don't have to then put it in. I don't think we're saying at this point that, starting with the January checks, the employees are getting this
No.
money.
No.
That's how I'm taking this. This is just for our operating concern right now as we're dealing with the first quarter
Right.
of our payments. That doesn't mean we're going to spend all this money,
No.
but at least it's appropriated for us to spend if we decide to spend it. Is that correct? Is that how you take it, Mr.
I'm
Whedon?
waiting when you're done.
Madam Chair?
I'm done on that, well, while I'm talking, I might as well. Mr. Whedon didn't bring up some valid points with some excellent points with the way our report 52 is and moving the money. It's important to understand that the money is there. The line items may change. I would like, when we go through next year, on this report, things in capital, our report ratcheted down, so we can see exactly, like this line item is $400,000. Okay, what's in that line item? For us to see exactly, so we don't have to, not
Constantly
guess, but
question.
constantly question, because we do get the answers, but then 7 months later, we're like, well, what was in that again? So I'd like to see all that information ratcheted down. It's going to make the report a lot bigger, but that's okay, because that, we should, as conservators of of the residents' money and our money, we should be able to say, yep, that's what's in that line item right there.
Sure,
And-
I completely agree. In Councilman Whedon, that's why last week I said what I did too. You know, we need to have a fuller picture. My understanding also is that the COLA is not a guaranteed right now at this point. And we've talked about in the past, having funds set aside for when police officers retire, things like that, that we do know there's a large balloon payment that goes with them at that time, and that could severely hit our budget. So unless somebody's retiring and they haven't told us about that yet, I would certainly hope we would get as much notice as possible for it. First of all, for the replacement, but also to figure out where that financial hit is going to come exactly. But my understanding is this is just temporary. All of that most definitely needs to be looked at 100% before any final appropriations are passed.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to say I agree with Mr. Spitznagel. As you said, I think we should, take it apart piece by piece. But we could beat this horse for another 3 weeks, and until next year, and we have all the final numbers, I'm going to vote yes, because we have to have the appropriations there to run the village. And next year, when everything comes in, we got to do our due diligence as far as the budget and take it all apart. But right now, we don't have a full picture, and next week, we're going to not have a full picture. It's going to take a little bit longer into the first quarter. So I agree with Mr. Spitznagel. I'm okay with the budget, right, the temporary budget as it stands.
Thank you, Councilman Brennerman.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Chair,
Mayor
hold on.
Colgrove.
20 years at this dais, 19 and a half. Some years we do temporary appropriations because we don't know where we're going to fall or what our expenditures are going to be in the first quarter of the following year. Very common. Sometimes, as in the past, especially in the past 3-4 years, we knew we had to pass a very conservative budget. And that's what we did. So we didn't have big capitals or a lot of things to talk about or future revenues coming in. The plan was easy. It was right there in front of us. Different than what we have in 2023. In the past, we've had this. We've had it a few years ago, as the chief will remember, and Mr. Whedon and Jennifer Allen, helping with the collective bargaining agreement. We didn't know where that was going to fall, so we did a temporary appropriations for the year. And in the first quarter, we did a permanent budget. Before the meeting started, I mentioned to some of my colleagues up here, talking to some mayors, they do temporary appropriations every year because they want to see exactly where they fall at the end of the year, which might not be till the middle of January. Just depends on how you want to do it. Both ways are acceptable. Both ways are very professional. We're not passing temporary things just to keep the lights on. We're passing it because we know those are expenditures, but we might have different expenditures to look at for the year, so we have to look at the bigger picture, as you said, and have that in front of us. Last week, we didn't have Report 52, so I do understand that. I do feel different as far as the increase to employees. As the administrator here, and talking to this council and understanding the workforce out there, I think the minimum we could have did, which we did in this appropriation, is the 2%. I think when we get the survey back that we hired HR partners, it might reflect something different. Mm-hmm. What I didn't want to do, and I think that's what was important and why it is reflected in here, because otherwise then we do retro, and we have done that in the past. Mm-hmm. Okay? I'm telling you right now, as the administrator, I think the employees deserve a minimum of 2%, which is there. Okay? I'd like to see that start January 1st. This isn't the first I've said that. I just, and it's there. I understand, Mr. Whedon and the rest of the council, if maybe we're gonna go beyond that. You know, we got a survey coming, we should, to think we were gonna go less than that, I don't know if we're gonna be able to stay competitive in the marketplace here, okay? I know we're going to executive session to talk about some of these positions. Not only is recruitment important, retention is so important right now. And I don't want to lose any other employees to that. So I appreciate it, and I love it. I mean, I want us all to stick together. I think what's made us at that $350,000 is because we have been conservative, okay? And we've been very good stewards of the village's money. But at the same time, I think those increases are that 2% from January 1st are very important. I think it just also shows to the employees that we understand the marketplace and what they do for our community. I really do. I think 2% is a very, very conservative increase right now. I think you're going to see that even be a very conservative increase in 2023. That is what the collective bargaining agreement is in their last year. Last year, this body followed the same path as the collective bargaining agreement. So I don't know why that wouldn't have at least been the minimum stage here today. So I would just ask, with that thought, that let's go forward with that and then see what the survey brings us. And I know I've stated that one reason I thought the temporary appropriations were important because that study isn't complete yet. Not only will the COLA adjustment might be different, is we might have to make some adjustments within 260, which would have to be reflective in the budget too. Okay, so I do understand that. I just feel that's just very important right now.
If I may, Mayor, it also does take time. So if we want that effective January 1st, it takes time to load that information into ADP. So in respect to Katie, who's still handling payroll, the sooner I can get that info over to her, the better. And if we're going to retro everything, likewise, that's another, bundle of work to do later. Because we have the option, once the survey's done, to award those increases if there's going to be any at that time. Starting at that time, you don't necessarily have to retro those. It certainly would be your prerogative. I can reiterate, having now been at another job for 3 months, that they were getting a 2% every year at anniversary dates, each employee, but they still had to bring people up to speed in certain departments, and people have still walked. It's all about the money right now, and we have, and over there, guess what? I left here, we're so understaffed here, and we're all doing so much. Same thing over there. So people are burning out, and the very least we can do, is a COLA increase, because it's within our budget, because we knew that might be something that would happen. It's just respectful. I mean, if we don't do it, I think that, good luck keeping employees. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I do have the info for the pay downs. All right, so basically, Mr. Nowicki, to answer your question, in general, right now, like our cash fund balance, I said hovers at 3.4 million. That's pretty true to actually what's in the regular bank account, not including that doesn't always happen like that in the finance world. You're not trying to like match your bank exactly to everything else, but right now it's pretty close to what it is, plus then investments on top of that. We paid down $140,000 on last year's note. So when we did a refunding this year, we refunded at $2 million. And how that played out is we paid $20,000 down on traffic signals. And so that takes us down to $160,000 still due on those. We paid down 35,000 on road construction. That's an older piece of the note, so that's down to 430,000. Now we've got other traffic signals dating back to, so the Alexander Road done, and we've got different phases of this. We paid down 10,000 on that, so we're down to 90. We paid down 30,000 on the event center, taking us down to 415,000 on that, still due. And then Dunham Road project, we paid down 25,000, so there's 525 out for that. And we paid down 20,000 on the new money that we took for the road projects that had already were happening, this year when we took new money last year. So we're down to 380,000 on that, which totals the 2 million that we took the note for. We didn't take any new money for road projects going forward because we are able to use our ARPA dollars for that, and because we do have these TIFs that we're going to be hopefully approving, and so hopefully dollars will come in for that. Could it need to be revisited? That just depending on the revenue stream and the project schedule, that maybe there might have to be going out for another note later, for an interim amount of cash. Yes, potentially. But after dealing with, and working with Matt Stew, we feel pretty confident that being able to use those ARPA dollars, and then also with things we've gone out for OPWC dollars, both in loan and grant, we should probably be able to pull off the road program for this coming year with no new money. We didn't take new money for it, so. Yeah.
The pay down,
Could
Yeah.
you please come forward, because we need it recorded.
it's time. Tom
The
Nowicki,
big people always gotta
17612.
make fun of us little people.
I know.
Okay, Tom?
He's a big guy.
That's what I'm saying, the big guys gotta make fun of us little people.
The 3.4, and then the pay down. Can you add up the debt?
The debt is 2 million right now. We're at 2
It's
million.
a two.
And even
Okay,
two.
yeah,
Mhm.
you speak fast
Yes, I'm
sometimes.
sorry. Yeah, we were at 2,140,000. We paid down a total of 140 on all projects. So now we are at a debt of 2 million.
So 3.4 minus.
And budgeted, yeah, and
1.4. is what-
Yeah.
so when we budget, then we'll throw in a figure. Okay, do we plan to pay down on 140 again? Do we plan to pay down more? We can always pay down more in the end. We did have one year when I first got here, a year or two after I got here, that we actually were doing well, and we were able to pay down more than what we originally planned. So we like to, you throw a figure out there in your budget so that that's what you're gonna stick to. And then certain projects, based on their timing, we're able to ride a while when you first did them, and you may not have had to pay anything, but then now we know each year there's a minimum of at least this much due on this project, this much on this project, so that we have to at least go to that level for those projects. So for instance, this year, traffic lights, we had to at least pay 15,000 down on the 2015 traffic light piece, but we paid 20. So yeah, so 2 million is where we're at right at this moment.
Okay.
Which is, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Which is considered low debt for even a community our size, I mean, that's, like when Matt Stew looked at it, and I know, and Nicole, you probably feel that way, and Angela, 2 million, I mean, we're not, it's not like we're in good financial shape, actually. We're doing well.
And any projects, correct me if I'm wrong, but those that have been in on our meetings with the TIF, because that will be passed for this year, then once that revenue stream starts, any projects that we had kind of started within that realm of that revenue stream, we can go back and put some money down on that. So it's not gonna be just any projects going forward. There may be small pieces of some of this, on our main roads that we can go back and maybe pay a little
Right.
bit down on what was already, any roads that are gonna be, have nexus to the projects, which we've got multiple projects going on corners, so that gives us a little bit of leeway on our nexus. But then you'll be able to use, the money to, it's not that we have to say it's immediate to just doing a new sidewalk or just doing this. We can go back and pay down on previous notes that anything that has nexus to the project.
Any other questions about that specifically? Okay, back to the temporary appropriations. My understanding was that the 2% was there if we were doing the COLA. Was the plan to, sorry, I'm trying to separate it. She didn't have it like that. But you had mentioned starting January 1 with the COLA. We did not discuss, and I thought that was actually going to be part of our executive discussion tonight.
That certainly can be. I just
About
threw it
that
out there. I
increase.
threw it out there because we've been starting January 1. That's what we've done. It's historically, it started January 1. We had 1 year we did retro, and that was only because we were still working on the CBA. And so we didn't have that settled to determine that, yes, we were passing that on. So that ended up being a retro piece. Otherwise, you guys have, this council, whoever's been up here at the dais has always decided to go ahead and award it as of January 1st. So that can be discussion that you have. But again, just keeping in mind that I need to give a little bit of leeway to the payroll person to get everything loaded into the system.
Well, go ahead. I'm not, never mind. I'm not-
So I have a question, technical question. Do we have to, well, we would vote on the money in the budget, I understand that, for if we did give the personnel raises. But do we have to vote on a specific raise, or no, we just,
I don't think we ever have.
No, you
I don't-
just,
I don't-
you
I
just
don't-
budget for it.
Yeah, you
If
just
it's
budget
budgeted
for
for,
it.
you can award.
Okay.
Right.
And by,
And as
Madam-
long as they're within their grouping in 260.
Right, which
We're
we're gonna be
okay.
looking at anyway with your survey, so.
right, Madam Chair?
Yes,
But if they're out of the 260 and you give a yearly increase, then we have to adjust the 260. But by passing this temporary appropriation, the 2% is in here.
The 2%'s built in there, and the main important
So
piece
if you're
of the,
passing this, you're passing. the
you're
2.
passing the two, whether you wanna do it or not, it's already loaded in there, okay? And again, the whole thing is gonna change when we do the whole budget, right? So this is just that snapshot. And the main crux of passing a temporary budget is so that legally I can open purchase orders and pay bills when January hits. Because you don't, it's kind of against Ohio revised code for me to go paying bills when we didn't approve any kind of budget, so.
Well, Madam Chair, another technical question. When you say that you did factor in the 2%.
Yeah,
And
that's-
I'm fine with it, just for the record, I'm fine with that. But just a technical question about that, you could, let's say the line item for the pay was, I'm not gonna look at it right now, but let's say it was $500,000, okay, for that quarter. And you put a line item in there for $1 million. Okay, that doesn't mean we're gonna spend $1 million for that quarter and give the employees a raise to equal $1 million for
Right.
that quarter. That's what I'm getting at, right? So I don't know if I agree with the stance that, well, if we vote for this, we are voting for the 2%. It is in here,
Exactly.
but we don't have to
Correct.
spend it.
Correct.
I agree with spending it, and I agree with giving the employees the 2% at least, because if anybody's shocked that that survey is going to come back with not more than 2%, we're going to end up probably increasing that throughout the year. That would be my guess, to give the employees a little bit more. And that's only me talking right now, because we have to remain competitive. And I don't mind doing that if the money's coming in and we can do that. They've paid for years, and they've done a good job for us. And I don't mind bringing them up to where they need to be and should be, if we can afford that. So that's my only technical issue with this at this point. I think we should all, if we're going to agree on giving people the 2% COLA raise, we should at least agree officially with giving them a 2% raise. I mean, am I out in left field or?
No.
or
no,
what?
no, Councilman, I completely understand what you're saying. My understanding when we were first given the temporary budget was, if you're going to do a 2%, it's in here.
Right.
But not that we had said, yes, we're absolutely doing it. I'm sorry, but I think 2% is actually pathetic.
Well, then say it. Well, then say it. Well, then say it.
It is,
Let then say it, because I said it.
yes. it
I'm,
is.
I'm, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a point. Okay?
And to all council here. okay, we're getting a survey done, okay? The survey might have equity adjustments, which we've talked about, which means the scale within 260 will change, okay? It just means that will be not necessarily broader, it just could be larger or smaller, which I doubt that it's gonna be small. It's gonna go this way. I'm sure it is. At that time, no one says you have to adopt that survey. That's just gonna be a tool whether or not we wanna do that. I think we all know that if anything we have to do is at least give the yearly increase. I guess you wanna blame it on me, that's fine. You know, I take the blame for, the buck always stops at my place, but I thought that's the least the minimum we're gonna give the employees. And then we're doing a survey to make sure we are competitive with the communities similar to ours. And if we have to change our ordinance within 260, which hasn't been changed in many years, we were going to do that. Every time we give a yearly increase, we end up bumping up 260 a little bit, each one. And it's not working. We need to, it's been, I think, since 14, I think the last survey was done. Okay, so we're looking at 9 years. So we're due. I just think that doing the 2% shows some good faith, and I know this council feels this way. We're at the dais here, we compliment them, I think it's the least we can do, and hopefully maybe we'll even be able to do more. And I understand you want to see the budget and stuff, but I could tell you this, at least from my position here. If things didn't look so bright in 2023, I still would be saying we have to give these employees the 2%. We're at a 350,000 plus, and we'll probably be at the same thing. We have to. Otherwise, we will not have the employees to provide the services that this village is used to. That's all. I think you guys are on the right track.
If I could just finish my thought
Yeah.
of where it was, my understanding when we were first given this was if you're going to do that. As I started to say, I think 2% is pathetic, and I would really like to do more for them. So I do not have a problem starting off with 2%.
How much more do you want to do? I'm in favor of it.
I would have to
Without
know.
doing, but what we don't want to do, at least give the 2%. You could always give more, but at least come the first of the year, they're going to get the
Yeah.
2% that's in your temporary
No, I have
appropriations.
no problem with that whatsoever, starting off with the 2%. And if we retroactive more than that, I'm more than happy to. I'm under a union contract, but my COLA raise this year was 7%. But I'm a union contract, so I've got a collective bargaining agreement there too with it. I have no problem starting off with the 2% right off at the beginning of the year. Like I said, that's just not how I understood it when we were first given this temporary budget. But I have no problems passing it. I have no problems with them getting 2%. And knowing that we are going to be discussing and hopefully giving more.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just had a question. Mayor, if it's permissible, as it relates to the compensation study or survey, does that survey cover all employees, whether hourly, salary, union, and non-union?
Yep.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
They are doing all employees. Collective bargaining also. Yes.
And with that being said, my understanding is that collective bargaining agreement may need to change also after that survey.
To give more, we don't need to change it. If we needed to adjust for less, we would need to change it, correct? Here, and John?
No. You're bound by the contract.
But we're going to enter into negotiations here towards the end of the year, I would imagine.
But with that said, if we, in good faith, I would think, as the administrator, and I'm sure council feels the same, and we've always said we hate to have everybody follow everybody, but at the same time, it's really the only way that works in some, regard. So would there be discussion if we gave all the employees more than the collective bargaining, which is 2% of 2023? I would think so. I would think, I would at least bring that forward and say yes, yes. Because what we're looking at it's not just one department, it's all the departments. And I think the difference is too, we can afford it. I think we're gonna be able, let's look at that. Let's look at that, you know, we're gonna pass the temporary appropriations, do the 2%. It's gonna give us some time. We'll get the survey back. We'll have plenty of time to really look at the survey and take a good look at it. Let's not spin our wheels now when we don't really have to.
Mayor,
we
do we have
don't.
any idea when that survey is going to be back?
That'd be a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna say now, probably, I'm hoping maybe, I was gonna say the end of January.
You think?
Yeah,
'Cause I would really like to have that back
Oh, sure.
before the end of the first quarter.
Well,
you
that's
have
the
to,
point,
yeah,
we have-
because
We have to
it-
pass a permanent.
it would have to be in the
appropriation
permanent
before
appropriations. It went slower than I thought. I do,
She just needed a lot of information.
a lot of information. I know, the department heads will probably meet with her too, to get a little input. What really has been important is, you know, we have job titles and other communities have job titles. We want to compare apples to apples. You know, you can get one position in another community and the title might be the same, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're doing the same work or the titles are correct. We just want to, we want to make sure we want a good study. We want a good study. It's not just something to put in front and say we did it. That's really not the whole purpose of it. We do this study, we probably don't want to do it again. We don't want to wait 9 years, but maybe 4 or 5 years, you know, or 3 years. But
Mayor, if I may, the last study that was done was not informative at all, so it really didn't give any pay ranges or comparisons. It basically summarized where we stand, you know, within our, you know, cities of like size, but there was no figures in there to even go by to say, well, here's where we were 7 years ago, now where are we today? It was really,
with that said, they were very excited that we had one done till I sent it to them.
yeah, because it was meaningless.
It didn't help much.
Yeah.
It wasn't as in-depth as they would have liked. Because the other one was just comparing, I mean, we're looking at, we want to change 260. You get 260 to be where it should be compared, you know, so, but.
Right, and Mayor, I will say, I just spoke to you last night about some other cities and what they were offering their employees too, so.
Yeah, and they're gonna look at, you know, I mean, we can't always, you know, that, we want a good study. We want them to say, hey, these are the ones we compare, these are some, you know, this is, you know, where you guys are, you know, you know, some communities will never be able to be where they're at. We just don't have the revenue or that, but, you know, we want them to give us a good survey, and I really feel Amy Petros is gonna do that.
Well, unless anybody else has anything on the temporary appropriations, I would ask for us to pass it tonight on an emergency basis and have that 2% COLA increase for the employees start as of January 1st. Okay, if we can move on, since our adjourn time was certain at 7.
We can always circle back to the credit card discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, do we want to get into the credit card discussion right now, or?
we can circle back.
Okay. What I will say on that is, I thought about this and looked into some things. I think it's important for us to still have some of the credit cards. I think maybe one of the best ways to save some problems is if we look at possibly cards just per vehicle for the service department with Rob. That way, if the guys are on a job and they need to run and get something, it makes it easier. I'm just throwing that out there for right now, but those cards could be controlled also by special PIN numbers that each employee would have, so you would know who exactly purchased what.
So the issue with cards is the volume of purchasing, and it's not that service is an issue now that I've been opening more blankets. In the past, the audit issue was that everything was being purchased and POs were not necessarily open. And I rectified a lot of that. The issue, having come from a city where we had one credit card in the safe at all times for any given place, you have an open purchase order. So I go to Lowe's, I have credit with Lowe's. So right now, yeah, we've been great. We haven't really had credit with anybody, which kind of bit us a little bit trying to get credit when it was Motorola time for police radios, and we had, it's like giving up your firstborn. But basically, you have credit. So there's an open PO, let's call it $40,000 with Lowe's in the beginning of the year. You need to go there. You've got that open PO. You still get your stuff just as quick as you would if you had the credit card. It's just a matter of taking the time on the back end to do that. And then could there be a card in each department for an emergency? Absolutely, in case there's going to be something. It's just gonna have to be communicated if it's, over a certain dollar amount. Hey, we're out snow plowing, wipers went crap, we need $60 worth of wipers on 3 different trucks. We're gonna put it on the card. Got it, whatever. And right, and I'm only suggesting, and Nicole and I had this conversation last week, no credit cards where she's at. And most cities aren't doing it this way. You've got one card in case of emergency. And again, the cards in police are gonna be a moot point. Most of them are putting on, we've got, one card that's being used for supplies and ammunition, but most of their stuff is uniform allowance. They're not gonna need cards once they're getting a check for that. So, and again, we can open POs with Atwells and Shutlers and things like that. So it's not that we won't still be able to go spend as needed. We would say, here's our top 10 places where we need to be like all the time, right? So I know, and Rob knows, because we've seen the bills, what do we really need to hammer home, and will these vendors work with us? And maybe one of those vendors will come back and say, yeah, we can't do that. And then that's gonna be the one that we know we're gonna have to use the credit card for.
Well, I think overall, and again, like I said, we said we'll continue to discuss this with the credit cards. But
Yeah.
overall, I think it's still necessary to have, my personal opinion, necessary, especially for the service department. If there's a need and we can get rid of a lot of those credit cards, that would be great. But I think we need to take into consideration some of the examples that Rob gave, such as needing diesel fuel in the middle of the night.
That's well, true, and for diesel fuel, that would be one thing. For the fleet cards, that's totally separate, and those would stay in place, obviously, for the regular gas. So it's not to say we can't leave one for that. What I'm trying to do is mitigate 120 transactions on credit cards every month. Because that is taking 3 days to put in the system. 3 days, every single one of those has to go in. Can I lump all the Home Depots together? Sure. Can I, you gotta make sure you got everybody's receipts. You gotta make, so, and again, this is coming from the auditors too. It's not just me. It's, and you're gonna eliminate a lot of work on one person trying to get all that into the system. And recreation. Now they're even more guilty on, because I don't open 20,000 POs for the rec department. I open for senior services because we know we're gonna do senior lunch. We open maybe for whatever, and I can go back, whoever's gonna do POs next year, we can open more. But she's got a ton because Walmart.com, Amazon.com, like, so it's become like, let's just keep going and spending money and not paying, not every department, but saying some departments says, let me just keep going and spending money. And then I'm not even paying attention to what I'm spending on because I just want to go get all my supplies for this party and that party. So it just puts a little more onus in some areas on what are we spending all this money on? And again, police have not been an issue. They've got one card that's dedicated to all of their stuff. Dispatch, one card dedicated to stuff. Everything else has been about uniform allowance. So we can work out what we need to with service in terms of making sure we're covered to have a card or 2 cards that are accessible, if they're out plowing and they need something in the middle of the night. It's not saying they can't do that. It's just to not have Cargill can come off, Kimball can come off. Those can be checks or ACHs from the bank. We don't need to be paying the AT&T bill on the credit card. And it's been there, and I'm guilty. I left it there because it's been there since I got there. But we've been making huge purchases on the credit card, all to get like a whole $1,700 back at the end of the year. The amount of work it's making that we're paying an employee to do it is just not worth it. And then again, the auditors, it's not clean. So.
We can pick this up after the beginning of the year. Is there any other business that anyone has? Rob?
My only recommendation would be if we're going to move to, I wanted the council open up my first, got put in the position I am. and I brought back account information, just because I thought that's clean and easy. If you go to Wolf Brothers, you go to Mars, you have an account with them, you can bill. So the only thing I would request, we're gonna phase out the cards, I'm happy to do so. Let's set up the account first with all
Sure.
our suppliers,
Oh, absolutely.
and then we don't end up having more.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. That would definitely be a strategic planning maneuver for your department, especially with us.
And as I said, we can continue to discuss this after the beginning of the year, so we can get to our definitive end time of 7 PM. Is there any other business?
PM, we meant
relating-
AM.
No,
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just one last thing. I mean, even, it's not even a matter, of, like Angela stated, getting rid of all the cards, but at least getting a little more control of it, as the auditor has suggested, lessen those transactions and stuff and clean it up a little bit. So I'll just toot my own horn. That's why I have 0 transactions, I think, on a credit card for 2022. And I think my 5.5 years, I had 1 transaction on a credit card. So Matt's always happy to look at that, isn't he?
Matt,
And Josh,
They'll
they're
have as many
always very
transactions.
happy to look at that.
they'll have as many transactions, it'll just be that, okay, Home Depot's gonna bill me once a month, right? Or bill whoever's here once a month. So it'll be a little less on the.
No transactions on the credit card and no car, no mayor's car.
So we can't see when you're coming.
Madam Chair?
yes.
One more thing about that before we go. I don't know how to run the service department. I know companies that shall remain nameless that, for example, puts a person in charge of cargo, for instance, at a certain location that's never run cargo before in their life. And they have no idea how the cargo department works at that place. For me to tell the service department how to use and how to bill, I don't think it's appropriate. I think that conversation should be between the person who knows best, which is the department head, and the finance director, who knows best about how that billing should look, and the director on getting together and, okay, you need it to look this way, this is how we can do this. I don't think I need to be in that conversation, other than to say, this is how we've decided to do this. It's going to make it clean and workable for this department. So for us to sit here and spend a lot of time coming up with ideas, I can come up with all kinds of ideas for you. None of them are going to be right. So that's just going to be my 2 cents on that.
Anything else? Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Spitznagel.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting, adjourn time certain at 7 o'clock at 8:18 PM.
Second.
Okay.
Wait, I think
Ray.
Mr. Whedon already seconded.
Yeah, Ray got the second. Okay, vote on the motion. Councilman Whedon?
Yeah.
Councilman Spitznagel?
Yes.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilman Mary Vernon Miller?
Yes.
And I also vote in the affirmative. So we are adjourned at 2018, 8:18.
Okay. Want to, everybody